I want you to try a visualization exercise with me for a second. Imagine you are a general.
Okay.
You're in the command tent. You've got maps spread out on the table, supply line logistics, troop morale reports. But you aren't in ancient China, and you aren't fighting a barbarian horde.
Right.
You're fighting the war of getting a toddler to put their shoes on at 7 a.m. Or
Well,
you're managing the, delicate diplomatic relations of a marriage that's been running on fumes.
or maybe it's the inevitable siege of your own body just getting older. It's a compelling image, isn't it?
It is.
We usually think strategy belongs in, I don't know, boardrooms or history books. But this source argues the most complex campaigns are the ones fought right in our living rooms.
That is exactly why I wanted to pull this specific stack of papers today. We're doing a deep dive into the secret treatises of Sun Tzu by Max and Claude.
And we should say right up front, this isn't the original art of war.
No, not at all. You are not going to learn how to set fire to an enemy camp here. It's a reimagining. It takes that cold, calculated wisdom and overlays it onto the messy, chaotic reality of modern life.
Marriage, parenting, friendship, failure.
All of it. And what I love is the mission statement. Most self-help is about how to be happier or richer. This text says the goal is to become the general of your own life.
Yeah. And the general isn't necessarily seeking happiness in that, fluffy sense. They seek strategic alignment. Moving from a state of constant, exhausting struggle to a state of flow.
Okay, let's talk about that struggle, because the first section is the treatise on living without striving. And I have to admit, my first reaction was to push back. When I hear not striving, my brain just hears laziness, It sounds like we're giving up and taking a nap. How is that a strategy and not just apathy?
It's a really common misconception, but the text is very specific. Not striving isn't about doing nothing. It's about, well, physics. It means your action is in perfect alignment with circumstance. They use this analogy of rowing a boat versus just floating.
But floating feels so passive, like you're just letting the water take you wherever.
But think about the energy you spend. If you row upstream, you are striving. You are fighting the current. If you navigate downstream, you're still moving, often faster, but you're using the current's energy, not just your own.
So you're working with reality instead of against it.
Precisely. The text uses water as the ultimate strategic model.
Yeah.
I mean, water never sits on a mountaintop creating a Gantt chart about how to reach the ocean.
It just finds the lowest path.
It just finds the lowest path. It yields. If there's a rock, water doesn't try to smash it out of ego. It flows around it. And yet over time, that same persistence wears the rock away. We exhaust ourselves trying to smash through rocks.
Stubborn people, bad timing, market forces.
All of it. We should be flowing around them.
There was one image in this section that really made it click for me on why we mess this up so often. The archer.
The archer. Yes. That's the perfect encapsulation of the striving paradox. The text says something like, the archer who worries about the target misses.
Which, again, feels wrong. I mean, in business and sports, we're always told, keep your eye on the prize, focus on the target.
But just break down the mechanics for a second. If the archer is obsessing over the target, the medal, the applause, the money, where's his mind?
It's in the future, on the outcome.
Right. And because he's anxious about that outcome, his body reacts. His shoulder tenses up, his breath gets all shallow.
So the very desire for the result actually sabotages the mechanics you need to get the result.
Precisely. The master archer hits the bullseye because he isn't trying to hit it. He's focused entirely on the action, the stance, the draw, the release. He trusts that if the action is aligned, the result just happens.
Striving is anxiety masquerading as effort.
That's the perfect way to put it. And the text gives us a little diagnostic checklist. It says, check your jaw. Is it clenched? Are your shoulders up by your ears? Do you feel like you're pushing against a wall?
That's striving.
That's you rowing upstream. And the remedy, according to this Sun Tzu, is to wait for the natural moment.
They had a merchant analogy for this too, right?
They did. Think of a merchant who desperately needs money. He tries to force a sale. He's pushy, he's anxious, he misreads the customer completely.
He fails because he's acting out of his own internal stress.
Exactly. Yeah. But the strategic merchant, he waits. He watches the market. When the external world creates an opening, a shortage, a new trend, then he strikes. He acts when the world is ready, not just when he is.
Okay, so that's the internal posture. Stop rowing upstream. But most of our wars involve other people. And the treatise on marriage applies this military framework in a way that is, well, it's blunt.
It is.
It starts by saying we've identified the wrong enemy.
Which is a massive paradigm shift. In a difficult marriage, the default is me versus you. You are the obstacle to my happiness.
And I'm the obstacle to yours.
Right. The text says this is a strategic hallucination. Your spouse is your ally. The enemy is external.
Give me some examples of that external enemy.
Poverty, illness, misfortune, the crushing passage of time, entropy. The world is trying to grind you both down. Your spouse is the only other person in the foxhole with you.
And if you're wasting your ammo shooting at the person in the foxhole,
You're doing the enemy's work for them.
that makes perfect sense on paper. But in the heat of an argument about dishes, the spouse feels like the enemy. And the text says this often comes down to what it calls the strategy of terrain.
Specifically, gender as terrain. And, we have to navigate this carefully. The text admits these are generalizations.
Of course.
But in strategy, you have to deal with probabilities. The concept of terrain just means you accept the reality of the ground you're on. You can't wish a mountain was a valley. You have to climb it.
And the source suggests men and women often operate on different emotional terrain.
Especially in how they handle pain or conflict. The analysis is that men, generally speaking, see the terrain through the lens of competence and respect. So when they're hurt or stressed, they withdraw.
They retreat to the command tent.
Exactly. To figure it out and reestablish competence. Women generally view the terrain through connection and affection. When they're hurt, they seek engagement. They want to repair that bond right now.
And the strategic blunder, the reason we end up shooting at our ally, is we follow the golden rule.
Right. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which in marriage is often fatal. A husband sees his wife is upset. He thinks, well, when I'm upset, I want to be left alone. So he gives her space. He thinks he's giving her a gift.
But on her terrain, which is looking for connection, that retreat feels like abandonment.
Total abandonment.
Ugh.
And the reverse is true. She sees he's stressed, so she tries to talk it out because that's what would comfort her. But to him, feeling incompetent and needing space, that pursuit feels like an attack.
It's an intelligence failure. You're trying to help with the wrong currency.
Yes. The strategy is, don't give them what you would want. Give them what the terrain demands. It's the highest form of discipline, really, to act against your own instinct, to serve the alliance.
Now, even if you do that, conflict happens. The text is pretty realistic about this. It says a marriage without conflict isn't peaceful. It's dead.
It's a corpse. No friction, no movement. A strong alliance is defined not by the absence of conflict, but by the efficiency of its repair. And it's ruthless about apologies.
You mean the whole "I'm sorry you felt that way" thing?
Oh, it eviscerates that phrase, "I'm sorry you felt that way." It's a hostile diplomatic maneuver. It denies responsibility. It basically says, my action was fine, your reaction is the problem.
Did the second strike.
It is. The only strategic apology is, I am sorry I hurt you. It accepts that your arrow hit the ally. Maybe you didn't mean to shoot, but you're still responsible for the wound.
There's one more part of the marriage section we have to touch on, supply lines. It frames sex and intimacy in a very utilitarian way.
It does. It kind of strips away the romance to reveal the raw necessity. In a war, if you cut the supply lines, food, ammo, fuel, the army just collapses.
And the text argues that intimacy, and this means sex, but also conversation, shared laughter, simple kindness, is the supply line of the marriage.
It's the nourishment. It is not a reward for good behavior.
Right, and that's the critical mistake. I'm mad at you, so I'm cutting off the supply.
The text warns you can't fight the external enemies, illness, financial stress, if your internal army is starving. You have to feed the troops, especially when the battle is hard.
Okay, let's pivot to what the book calls the long campaign, parenting. As a parent, this section was the hardest for me to read. It basically told me that my goal protecting my kids might actually be wrong.
It challenges the very definition of success. We think a good parent has happy, safe children. The text says the objective of the parent general is obsolescence. Your mission is to fire yourself.
You're not raising children, you're raising future adults.
Exactly. And to do that, you have to move from what it calls discipline to governance.
What's the distinction there?
Discipline is external. It relies on you being in the room. Don't touch that because I'm watching. That works for a toddler. But it's a catastrophic strategy for a teenager.
Because what happens when they go off to college?
Total chaos. Governance is internal. It's the child choosing the right path because they understand the mechanics of consequence. And the only way to teach that is through what the source calls cheap lessons.
I love this concept, but it's so hard to practice. Can you explain the cheap lesson?
It's the strategy of allowing failure when the cost is low. So your 10-year-old forgets their homework. The instinct is to rush it to school for them.
Oh, 100%.
The text says, stop, let them get the 0.
But that feels like I'm failing them as a parent.
No, you're teaching them the cost of a 0 in 4th grade is nothing. It's a cheap lesson in organization. But if you rescue them every single time, you teach them that logistics don't matter because the supply helicopter always shows up.
And eventually the supply helicopter can't fly anymore.
Exactly. At 25, the stakes aren't a missing worksheet. They're missed rent payments, car accidents, divorce. You want them to learn about failure and recovery when the tuition is cheap.
So the rescue is really just the parent trying to soothe their own anxiety.
That's the hard truth of it. We save them to make ourselves feel better. The strategic parent has to endure the discomfort of watching their child struggle, knowing it's basic training for the real war later on.
And there's one other weapon they mention, hypocrisy. Children watch more than they listen.
It's the ultimate vulnerability. You can lecture about honesty all day, but if your kid hears you lie on the phone to get out of a dinner party,
Good lecture is worthless.
completely void. They learn morality is just a performance. The text warns, do not preach virtue and practice vice, for you will raise a hypocrite. You have to be the terrain you want them to walk on.
Okay, let's zoom out. We've covered the campaigns of our relationships, but every general eventually faces defeat. The treatise on defeat and the treatise on solitude seem linked.
They're deeply linked. The central idea is that victory is actually dangerous. From an intelligence standpoint, victory is blinding.
How so? I mean, I'd much rather win.
Of course we all would. But when you win, you assume your plan was perfect. Victory hides your weaknesses. Maybe you just get lucky. Maybe the enemy was incompetent. But defeat is pure data. It reveals exactly where your logistics failed, where your morale broke. The general who makes excuses, the sun was in my eyes, learns nothing. The general who sits with defeat gains an education.
But sitting with defeat requires being able to just sit. And the text draws a really hard line between loneliness and solitude.
This is a vital distinction. We conflate them all the time. Loneliness is the pain of connection denied. It's a deficit. Solitude is the glory of being alone. It's a choice.
And why is it so important to choose it?
Because of what the text calls the performance. It argues that when we're in company, even with our best friends, we're always performing a little, adjusting our masks.
Sure.
Solitude is the only place where the performance stops. It's where you meet your actual self.
I think that's why it's so terrifying for people. It's why we fill every silent moment with podcasts, present company excluded, of course, or scrolling or music.
We are terrified of who is in that room when the noise stops. The text calls that running from the human condition. And it goes a step further. It connects solitude to death.
Which is cheerful.
It's stark, but it's strategic. Death is the ultimate solitary experience. You can't take a companion. So the source argues that practicing solitude, learning to be comfortable in your own internal fortress, is, in a way, training for that final departure.
If you can't stand to be with yourself for an hour, how will you handle the end?
That's the question.
That's heavy. But we don't have to stay in the fortress forever. The text brings us back out to the treatise on friendship. And it makes a distinction I really liked. Friendship is chosen, family is assigned.
Right. Family is terrain you're born onto, you navigate it. Friendship is a purely voluntary alliance. And because it's chosen, the text says it has to be rechosen constantly.
I think we've all had those zombie friendships. You're just friends because you were friends 10 years ago.
The text warns against that non-reciprocal alliance. If you're the only one sending the text, the only one planning things, that's not a friendship. That's a dependency. You're carrying a corpse. Put it down.
But the real test isn't just that they text back. It's about truth-telling.
The book differentiates between the flatterer and the advisor. The flatterer wants to keep the peace. They tell you you're right, even when you're wrong. They confirm your biases.
Which feels great in the moment.
It feels great, but it's strategically fatal. A true advisor values your long-term well-being over your immediate comfort. They risk the relationship to tell you that you have spinach in your teeth, or that you're drinking too much, or that you're mistreating your spouse.
And the final audit of that alliance is crisis.
Crisis is the only real test. When the sun is shining, everyone's a friend. But when you're broke, or grieving, or disgraced, when the supply lines are cut, watch who leaves the tent.
And the text says, let them go.
Let them go. The ones who stay are the only ones who are ever really there.
We have time for one last campaign, the one we are all conscripted into, aging.
The treatise on aging. The strategic error most people make is thinking this campaign starts when you get your AARP card.
It starts now.
It started 10 years ago. The text argues The body you build in your 30s is the fortress you have to defend in your 70s. The finances you save now are your logistical options later.
But once you're deep in that campaign, the strategy shifts. It becomes about accepting limitation without surrender.
That's such a nuanced balance.
Right.
It's not fighting aging like a denialist,
Right.
but it's not giving up either.
No.
Correct. Denial is foolish. General pretending he has troops he doesn't have.
Mm.
Giving up is surrender. Wisdom is adaptation. If you can't run, you walk. If you can't see well, you get glasses. You fight to maintain capacity within the new reality.
You don't retreat, you dig in.
You dig in, and there's this beautiful concept of completeness at the very end.
Mm.
We often feel like if we die with things still on our to-do list, we failed. This is maybe the most profound point in the whole book for me.
Mm.
We see death as an interruption. I wasn't done yet. The text argues that a life is complete at the moment it ends, regardless of your plans.
It distinguishes between finishing and failing. Break that down.
Finishing is simply reaching the end. Failing is stopping before the end. If you die, you didn't fail. You finished. The campaign concluded. The general lays down the map.
So if we look at this entire stack of treatises, marriage, parenting, solitude, friendship, aging, and we try to build a profile of this master general, who is this person?
The master general isn't the conqueror. They aren't the ones screaming orders and forcing their will on the world. They're the one who aligns with reality.
They stop rowing upstream.
They stop rowing upstream. They accept the terrain of their partners. They let their children stumble so they can learn to walk. They embrace the silence. And they adapt to the changing seasons of their own life.
It's this idea that the strategic life, the one where you're really paying attention, is actually the easier life.
It is. It is. We exhaust ourselves fighting phantoms and trying to bend reality to our ego. The text is just inviting us to put down the sword and read the map.
That reminds me of the thought from the Solitude treatise, and I think this is the perfect place to leave our listeners. We spend so much energy running, checking notifications, staying busy, trying to escape.
And the text asks one final, provocative question. If you find yourself unable to sit in silence, you have to ask yourself, what is it about your own company that you are trying so hard to escape?
A question worth sitting with. This has been a deep dive into the secret treatises of Sun Tzu. I hope it helps you become a better general of your own campaign. Thanks for listening.